is On Target St. John's. A look at politics, crime, education. What's happening here with the people who know. The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station. Now, your On Target St. John's host, Linda Swain.
Good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year to you on this snow day. Of course, a snow day for some and not for others. It's not a snow day for Dr. Janine Hubbard, who is in today, miraculously.
Trudging through snowbanks and all kinds of interesting adventures.
You know, there's something to be said for the propensity of all Canadians. I don't know what it is. But we have some snow and everybody goes, oh, we got Boys, we live in Canada.
We do. And once this is all settled out, hopefully people can get out and enjoy it a little bit. If nothing else, now granted, I had a dog who this morning took one look at it and said, no, I don't think so. And she's a snow dog. But I think by this afternoon, we'll revel and enjoy and bounce and romp and give me a little vicarious joy.
There you go. I have a snow dog who loves the snow, so she's a delight to watch, trudging through it all. You know, it's not easy on the back for sure, but that's it. You know, we live in my personal feeling, embrace it.
Well, what else are we going to do? You don't have a lot of other choice.
When you compare us to places like Russia, Finland, Norway, Sweden, I mean, they all embrace the winter. They have a wonderful time. They get outside. They don't let it stop them.
No. For
some reason, we just get down by it. Unless you got a skidoo.
There you go. Or, like I say, dogs that get you outside and get you enjoying it. And it helps give us some perspective. There are certainly worse places in the world we could be living and worse weather conditions we could be coping with.
Well, Happy New Year is what I wanted to say. And thanks for coming in today, despite the challenges. The town of Portugal Cove, St. Phillips may not be too pleased with you right now.
Yes, I apologize. My car is still blocking traffic and stuck in a snowdrift. Sorry, folks.
New Year, new you. We hear that all the time. This is the time of year when a lot of people make resolutions. I personally don't. I really don't see the point. But many people do, and they do it with good will, if you know what I'm saying. And it is a time of the year when we reflect on things, a new year, so you think, well, what am I going to make out of this year for myself and my family and my career? And you ponder on ways to make things better. And we could all be a little more physically active. We could all be eating better. We could all be a little bit less weight than we are now, and all those good things. But do people really make a lot of New Year's resolutions? Do people do that?
Well, we know that about half the population actually says that they make a resolution every year. I actually really like your word on reflections, because I think that in some ways is a much more meaningful way to consider some of this, is the kind of taking stock of our lives. And that doesn't mean suddenly going and making radical changes and making resolutions, although we'll certainly talk about those resolutions. But it is a nice time just to reflect, and whether it's, over the holidays you were reflecting on some of the positive things that have happened, whether you're reflecting on, things that you appreciated, whether it's friends and family, whether you're reflecting on some of the challenges that you've gone through in this past year. This really is kind of a time of year that in some ways it's very artificial, but it does kind of force us to just kind of take a look at the stock of the situation and figure out, am I happy with where things are? Are there things that are making me really unhappy that maybe I do want to make some changes?
Now, the advertisers are well aware of this sort of thing.
Or are they ever?
This time of year with the ads for the
new
workout
as you said, new year, new you, and gym memberships skyrocket. And what we know is most resolutions are broken within the first 6 weeks. And anyone who routinely attends a gym will tell you that the next 6 weeks are really a little obnoxious if you're a regular gym goer, because suddenly there's an influx of people and it's hard to get machines. And you kind of know that by the middle of February, it'll be back to normal again.
And again, done all with the best of intentions. If you did get that gym membership for Christmas, or you're making that gym membership now, we don't want to discourage you from doing that. We don't want you to discourage you from getting that piece of exercise equipment.
Not at all. But we want to give you some tips on how to make it effective and how to have it stick.
How do you stick to it?
A really good point. And the thing is, we self-sabotage. We set ourselves up with unrealistic expectations, and we set ourselves up with these unrealistic goals and then beat ourselves up when we're not able to achieve them. So a lot of it is looking at the change mindset right from the very beginning. And I like to use a bit of a term that we call SMART goals. And what that stands for is goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So as opposed to saying, I want to get healthy this year, well, that's a really big, vague generalization that's really hard to, in a week's time, say, well, what have I done towards that? And most people, when they try to think something like that, they're like, okay, I have to make radical lifestyle changes. I need to, throw out every piece of junk food that's in the cupboard, and I need to be going to the gym for 2 hours a day. And no, what you need to do is find something that is small and achievable today. So maybe it's saying, I'm going to take one flight of stairs at work instead of taking the elevator for that one flight. I can still take it the rest of the way. Or maybe it's saying, I am going to eat a carrot. I'm going to add something into my life. I'm going to add one serving of fruits and veggies. It's not radically changing everything else. It's a small step. Or it's you know what? I'm going to walk to the bottom of the street to get mail from the mailbox as opposed to stopping the car on the way home. I'm just going to add something small, and it's something that I can keep track of.
Or I'm not going to eat that bowl of chips tonight when I'm watching the game.
And even that, what we know is it's a lot easier to add things into your lifestyle in terms of making changes as opposed to depriving. Because if you are used to sitting there and having that bag of chips, taking that away, you are going to really strongly feel that withdrawal feeling. So whether it's saying, I'm going to make sure that I had a healthier supper beforehand so that I'm feeling fuller. And maybe, I may still sit down with that bag of chips, but maybe I'll only have a smaller portion because I've made those additional changes leading into it. Or maybe it's saying, you know what, I really like the sensation of sitting and munching on the couch, but maybe I'm going to switch it out a little bit. But you want to be careful about not making a radical change quickly.
So like you say now, add things. So, all right, I'm having that bowl of chips while I'm watching the game. But tomorrow I'm going to walk to the post office.
Exactly. So it's going to start to balance things out a little bit. So because anytime you add something that's making you feel deprived or feeling like it's really interfering in your life, you're not going to keep it up as a long-term lifestyle change.
When you talk about adding things, too, there's all these time commitments and draws and strains and drains on our lives. How can we incrementally add things without taking away too much of our precious time, if you will?
Well, and again, it's figuring out what is manageable for you. And start small. Start really, really small. Another one is, let's say you're trying to be a little bit more fiscally responsible, or you're just feeling the crunch of all of those Christmas bills. It could be something like saying, you know what, I'm going to set up the coffee maker at home and take in a thermos with me as opposed to stopping off at the coffee shop on the way into work. It's a small change, and it does take some getting used to it. It takes a while to develop that habit. One of the ways that you can reinforce it for yourself is every time you do that, go and put a toonie in a jar. That's a toonie you've saved. Or same thing, even if you look at the cupboards and say, what's something that I can pack for lunch for tomorrow? Something simple, doesn't have to be really complex. It literally can be a tin of soup that's in the cupboard. But you know what? I'm doing that instead of going out and buying my lunch. So again, put $5 or $10 in that jar to represent the I made a choice. And then what you want to do is be able to track it and measure it. So let's say once a week, you go and look at what I have been able to stash away here.
$45 here.
I do. And that means I can put that towards something meaningful. Because you always want to set things that you can kind of track and reward yourself intermittently. Now, maybe it's not the best if you do that every week, we can go out and spend that $45. But even if it's, you know what, at the end of the month, look at this. Look at what I've managed to do. Actually, we can treat ourselves to a nice night out. Or we can, you know, you can indulge in something that you always thought was a little beyond reach because you were constantly spending those $2 and $5 and
Your
they add
reward.
up. Exactly.
We are, after all, little rats.
We
aren't
are little rats in the lab maze. I hate to say it, but on one level, that's exactly what we are.
Well,
Did I just say labs in the rat maze?
Merry
You know what I meant.
Christmas and Happy New Year to all our little rats out there. We'll be back with Dr. Janine Hubbard right after this.
Now back to Linda Swain on Target St. John's on VOCM.
And we're back. Happy New Year to everyone. And this is our, I guess, New Year's resolutions show, if you
Sure.
will. The brand new year, new me, as they say. Are all these resolutions really social media led?
Well, I think there's definitely, it almost feels like a peer pressure led. There is this artificial sense of, well, I must be making a resolution. And I think it's actually a really important message to get out there that resolutions can happen at any time during the year. And one of the reasons people often fail with them is because they do feel this artificial pressure. Everybody's going around going, hey, did you make any resolutions? If now isn't the right time for you, that's just fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with sort of saying, no, I got a lot on my plate right now. I'm just managing barely to, you know, tread water and keep my head above water. I will worry about some resolutions when I have more emotional or mental or strength to be able to make some of those changes, because this stuff isn't easy.
You said the average resolution lasts about 6 weeks. I was a little surprised that it was that long, to be quite honest.
Yep.
But what are the biggest mistakes people make? You said, you know, sometimes people set their goals too big, or they're too broad, or they're vague.
Absolutely.
What do you do?
That's probably the biggest thing, is the right from the outset not setting it as something that is actually achievable. But then the other big mistake people make is they don't prepare for slip-ups. They get into, and we've all done this, they get into this all or nothing thinking of, you know, I didn't manage to do my goal today. I was too tired, or I was carrying too many bags, so I took the elevator all the way up and I didn't do those stairs. Forget it. I'll start again next week, or I'll start again next month, as opposed to saying, that's okay. That happened today. We pick ourselves up and we start again tomorrow. It's the knowing that, here's a shocker, folks, we're human, we're not perfect, we're not robots, and we are going to slip up. We're going to make mistakes. Or just life is going to throw stuff at us. Let's say, I think this is one of the things happens to a lot of people. They kind of have goals in January. And again, whether it's being healthier, whether it's more exercise, something along those lines, and then they get sick, which happens in Newfoundland in January. And that puts them totally off track, which, fair enough, you need to take care of yourself when you're ill. But then they can't get back going again. It's the, that didn't work, I'll wait till next January. Or, so it's the, okay, life happens. Every day you can pick something small to make a change, to work towards, to pick a goal that's something that you can achieve, and not beating yourself up if things aren't going according to plan. Like I say, life events happen, stressors happen, work happens, family happens, kids get sick. These are all things that are part of our lifestyle, and that's why if you're trying to make these radical changes, it's never going to work, because that's going to completely throw you off. So again, going back to the what's small, what's something I can do today?
I know, looking back at my own past failings,
Yeah.
if you will,
Which we all have.
the only time that it's worked for me is when I was truly motivated. Sometimes my intent is, yes, okay, I'm going to do this now, but I'm not motivated, if you know what I'm saying. When I'm motivated, it happens.
Yeah, and that's actually something that as psychologists, we spend a lot of time assessing in people. Where are you in your readiness for change? There's we've got a couple of terms that we use. We describe some people as being in the pre-contemplation stage. Like, yeah, it'd be really nice to, save some money. Or, yeah, you know what? I know I really should stop smoking. That's the, it's kind of there. It's at least an awareness that that's something that maybe should be a priority. but we're not even really kind of at that next step. And then we have what we call the contemplation stage, which is you know what? I know this is something I should be doing something about. Maybe considering some ideas. And then we get the action stage. As you said, that's when you're motivated, when it works for you. And that's why I'm hoping people will take some of the tips from today, and you don't have to make a New Year's resolution this week. Maybe that's something that kicks in for you in the spring in a different way. Or maybe it is something that motivates you today. But it has to be something where you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm ready. Because making a behavioral change actually takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of mental energy to keep going with it.
I know I've heard a lot of people, and I heard it just over the holiday season, as a matter of fact, people saying, you know what, I'm going to run in the Telly 10 this year, or
Yep.
I'm going to be in the regatta. But again, that's an awful lot of work, and you have to be ready to be able to do it.
You do. And sometimes having an end goal like that is fantastic. That's something to be able to work towards. But you have to then work backwards and figure out what are the mini goals that you want to achieve along the way. So figuring out something that's going to give you feedback and reinforcement at least once a month between now and then, if not weekly, kind of just a little bit of self-motivation and check-in. And figuring out a schedule. That's one of the other things we haven't talked about yet. But one of the best ways to have a behavioral change or a resolution stick is to put it in your schedule, like actually book a time for it or book a reminder, or literally if it's comes up on your phone and says eat a carrot, that's okay. Sometimes we need that until that change starts to kick in. But the other thing that you can do, if you truly are motivated, if you truly are ready, is tell someone. Putting it out there puts a whole new level of accountability and responsibility for your actions, but it also gives you built-in support. It gives you somebody, and again, if you want to put it out as a Facebook goal, as a Twitter goal,
setting you up for failure, because I mean, if you say that to a spouse or a sibling or something,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you're not doing it, and then they're going to be on your back.
well,
Nobody wants that, and then you'll just stop just for spite.
no, and it's
Maybe I'm telling too much about myself.
we're learning all kinds of things, Linda. And again, you need to know the people in your life. Like I say, maybe not if you want to go full on public, that's fine. But sometimes it is just letting a partner or a spouse or a friend or a colleague or somebody, just letting them know. And sometimes that makes it a little bit easier for you to lean on them and say, you know what, I got really off track this week. I need a bit of a kick in the butt. Can you help me out? Having that source of support can be really useful.
Indeed, and don't mind my situations.
Those happen too, though. Absolutely.
My sister's brutal. That's all I got to say. That's all well and good for those well-intended type of resolutions. There's, losing a little bit of weight, or getting a little more fit, eating a little bit better. Then there's a little more serious stuff. I need to cut back on my drinking. I need to give up smoking. These are health issues, serious health issues. How can you stay motivated when it comes to that kind of thing?
Honestly, both of those, because we know that you are dealing with both a physical and a psychological addiction, whether, wherever you are in that spectrum, even if it's hey, I have a smoke once a week or drink once a week and I don't want to do that anymore, to, much heavier use. You need to reach out. Those are the kind of things that really and truly do need some professional support, some backing. We've got some fantastic services available locally to help with both of those issues. But that's really one that some people do manage to do it on their own, but it's a real struggle because you are dealing with physical symptoms and there's a lot of stigma involved as well.
You mentioned reminders, whether it be a friend or a family member or even the phone.
Or your phone.
Do apps help?
Again, depends on you. Depends on the person. Some people find them incredibly helpful. Some people just find them annoying and delete them fairly quickly. It's all of this is a matter of, again, that little bit of self-reflection, knowing yourself, knowing what has worked for you in the past, exactly as you were mentioning earlier. What has worked for you in the past and what hasn't worked in the past. Again, if somebody comes into my office as a psychologist, that's one of the first things I'm going to ask is, tell me about your patterns in the past. What worked, what didn't, so that we can then try to use that as meaningful information moving forward. So yeah, there are tons of great apps if you're someone for whom apps are a helpful thing.
We also like to undermine ourselves.
Absolutely.
We're always coming up with excuses. Well, yeah, I can do that, but there's too much snow on the ground, and I don't want to go jogging now this time of year. Or
somebody had yesterday, I made my resolution, but it's Storm Chips Day.
I saw that. I saw that one.
We do. We undermine all the time.
So how do we buck that? Because we do always have that sort of self-defeating kind of attitude from time to time.
It's a real challenge, and sometimes it's being kind to yourself and saying, okay, yeah, I know that my goal or my plan was, yes, I was going to take the dog for a walk for an hour today, and I'm just really not feeling it. That's okay. So whether that's a day that you maybe spend some time more on some emotional self-care and well-being, whether, you pull up a yoga video and do some stretches and some breathing, whether it's just taking the time for yourself, having, a long shower or bath, a little bit of time for some self-reflection, some self-care, whatever self-care is for you, sometimes that's what you need to then kickstart it again the next day.
Dr. Janine Hubbard is our in-studio guest. She's with the Association of Psychology of Newfoundland and Labrador. We're talking about resolutions and coming out of the holiday season. And I, for one, am coming out of the holiday season like a lot of people, except for those who had the snow day, of course. We'll talk about getting back on track right after this.
Now back to Linda Swain on Target St. John's on VOCM.
And we're back. VOCM's On Target St. John's. Our in-studio guest today is Dr. Janine Hubbard with the Association of Psychology of Newfoundland and Labrador. And we're talking a little bit about the new year and getting used to things. And it was a busy Christmas season for a lot of people, of course. And it's really tough to get motivated and back on track. We're all back on track here today. And I have to say that I was a little bit, when I got out of bed this morning, it's like, oh, yeah, how am I going to do this? That kind of thing. Yeah. Because you get out of it. And even if it was just 7 days or 10 days, it really takes a readjustment.
It does take a readjustment, and in some ways this one is so much harder than that September Labor Day, going back to work, going back to school. Partly you're taking down all of the decorations that you were maybe so excited to put up, a little while ago, and now you just kind of look at them with dread and go, oh, right, I have to put these back in boxes again, don't I? And for a lot of people, it's looking ahead and going, well, we've got winter from now till June. And it certainly can feel a little bleak and depressing. Some people, it's kind of the aftermath of the holidays. Keeping in mind, for some people, it was great, it was exciting, it was busy, and you're kind of almost a little hungover from just activities. But for other people, it's a challenging time of year, and there's a lot of pressures over the holidays, and kind of coming in out of that can be really challenging. So it's figuring out, okay, how am I getting through the winter? How am I working on these next steps?
So for those who are going back to work, a lot of people did get that little bit of an extra reprieve today because of the snowfall. But getting back on track in work and school, getting back on those schedules, you had talked a little bit about this back in September about getting back into your routines incrementally instead of just, I'm going to go to bed 3 hours early tonight.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, how well did that work for most of us? Now, a lot of people, I think it's safely a lot of people went to bed last night knowing that it was probably going to be a snow day this morning. And here's hoping you've had your kids out shoveling and building snowmen and running around in the snow so that they're all going to fall asleep really easily and early tonight, right? Tire them out. It's nice out now. But yeah, that readjustment is always a really tough one. Ironically, for a lot of people today, they've been able to do one of the recommendations, which is go back to a short week. If you're able to go back partway through the week, that's always kind of a nice way to do it. But it's more kind of looking ahead. If you're feeling, oh, geez, I had such a good time over the holidays. It was so nice to see people. Now is a great time to start scheduling some social events. And whether it's something low key, like planning, okay, yeah, we know holidays are over, but next weekend we're going to have a movie and popcorn night. And we're going to, but actually plan it. Don't just kind of let it happen. Or, you know what? It was so nice to see some people over the holidays. Why is it I only ever see them once a year? Make a point to book something for them. Again, it's Newfoundland. Make it a little flexible to deal with snow dates. But as opposed to just, because we all do this, we're like, oh, we should get together. We should do this. Plan it. I was going to say our restaurants do a fantastic job over the winter. Usually in February, I think it is, where they do it because it's a slow time for businesses. So they do all kinds of really interesting promotions. Use that as the opportunity to go and try a new place, support a local business, and go and enjoy yourself for the evening. But book that with some of your friends and family.
It is about those goals and planning, isn't
Yep.
it? Because you have something to look forward to.
Absolutely. And even if you need to break up the winter into small chunks, even if you need to think about now till Valentine's Day, and then Valentine's Day till St. Patrick's Day or St. Patty's Day to Easter, like breaking it up into some of those little chunks and then planning something fun and special to go along with some of those, little winter holidays that do come along. Gives us something to look forward to. Now is absolutely the time of year where people, if this is within your budget and your means, start looking at the travel brochures. Listen, even if you're not going to go anywhere, that's a lovely fantasy escapism. That's some good bathtub reading, or the travel brochures. Take yourself away for a little while. And even if it's just the fantasizing and the dreaming of, oh, well, wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be nice? It just kind of helps to think in a forward direction. And hey, maybe that's what you need as the motivation for some of those financial goals that you were working towards.
Nothing gets a Newfoundlander more excited than thinking about vitamin D. Because we need it so badly. There you go. Your giraffe sweater says it all.
I needed to dream about the tropics this morning, let me tell you.
And I noticed that some people on Twitter are already tweeting about summer vacation or winter vacation plans in summery type places. It really does do the heart good to have that goal to look forward to, doesn't it?
And again, it doesn't have to be a big expensive holiday. It can be planning ahead for something that you're looking forward to doing in a short period of time. Like I say, it can be something like getting together with friends and family. It can be splurging and going out for the evening. It can be planning, hey, there's something on at the LSPU Hall coming up. I'm going to book my ticket now so I can look forward to it in advance. So whether it's a show, whether it's a concert, even if it's just looking to go, what movies are coming out in the next little while, and building some anticipation, looking forward and saying, these are some things that I'm going to enjoy. The flip side is also then what are some things that, again, we talked about adding stuff in. Okay, I know I have a long winter ahead of me. Maybe my goal is I want to read a few more books, or I want to pick up a craft again. Making some productive use of some of that extra indoor time you have coming up. And looking at, so it's twisting around and thinking of it in a slightly more positive light.
Good deeds.
Good deeds. Absolutely. Listen, shout out to the lovely neighbors on my street in St. Philip's today. I had a number of lovely assistants trying to get me off the street. Didn't work, but we tried. This is a great time of year, and it can be small little things. It can be sending the kids out to help clear off the neighbor's car. It can be helping with some shoveling. Get them out there tonight. Well, we were talking earlier, tis the time of year for comfort food and batches of stew and soup. And think about if you've got a neighbor or a coworker or somebody who would really appreciate a surprise, knock on the door, or a nice little container of some Tupperware with it. I was thinking of you and I thought you might like to enjoy some of this. It's small things, but they can make a big difference.
And it's not enough to look out the window and say, oh my, I wonder who's going to help out Mrs. Murphy this year. Put on your snow pants.
Yes, and if you're not able to do it, make some calls. Again, that's one of the things I love about this province is the generosity of spirit and of helping out. Today is a great day to be seeing people out and about and doing that. But remember that you have people in your circle, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, whether it's a colleague. You have people who may not be great at reaching out and asking for help, but you know that they're there.
There is a long winter ahead of us, and like you say, setting these little measurable little goals, saying, okay, we're going to have that movie night, maybe not this weekend, but it's definitely next weekend.
Yep.
We'll invite over so-and-so in this one.
Exactly. And we'll bake some brownies, or we'll do something.
things.
We'll do something fun to make it an event, not just a regular Friday night.
There, setting those little goals, but there is this, some people start thinking about, oh gosh, now that Christmas is behind us, we've got a long winter ahead of us. How can you tell the difference between a little bit of the winter blues and something a little more serious than that?
Really vitally important question. I'm glad you asked it. Some of it is taking a look at your symptoms and really doing a bit of self-appraisal, or even checking in with somebody to say, I haven't been feeling great lately. Have you noticed any changes in me? Listen, we all wind up with changes in, our appetite and our sleep over the winter. It tends to get a little bit out of whack. Sometimes we're sleeping and eating more. But you want to take a look at things like your sleep habits, like your eating habits, like your alcohol consumption, your tobacco consumption, your cannabis consumption. Taking a look and saying, am I doing more of this than is usual for me? And also, we all have a tendency this time of year to kind of go, I don't really want to do the social things because that involves having to haul on the snow pants. And, it's that much more effort. But taking a look and going, am I avoiding activities that I normally really enjoy? More above and beyond it's a pain in the butt to go out because it's snowy outside. When in doubt, check in. Have a chat with your family physician. The Doorways programs are a fabulous, quick and easy way to be seen, even if it's just something of, I'm wondering about these symptoms and I don't know whether this is typical or whether this is something that needs some help.
So what are typically some of the symptoms of depression?
Again, it's a little bit different in everyone. Usually it is changes in mood. For some people, it's a lot of sadness. It can be the upset, the teariness, the, kind of what you tend to think of. For a lot of people, yeah, absolutely. For a lot of people, it can be the flip side. They're much more irritable. They're quick to anger. They're very short-tempered. It's kind of when you're looking for kind of a change in somebody's personality, or more even an intensification of some of the things that you've already seen in them. Are
there physical symptoms? Pain, aches, pains, those kinds of things?
There certainly can be. Sometimes it can be, don't get me wrong, we all have our mornings where I'm like, oh, I really don't want to go to bed. But there are times when that is almost a physical ache. This is literally painful for me to try to get out of bed. Sometimes it's changes in things like hygiene. Again, the effort of getting up and having a shower if that's something that you're struggling with, that's a sign that, okay, this is, this is more than kind of the typical winter blues, winter blahs. Like I say, loss of enjoyment of typical activities. If you're having trouble focusing, you're sitting there, and yes, we all have the days where we're flipping on Netflix going, nope. But if you're seeing that being a persistent pattern for you, that's something you want to keep an eye on as well. And you want to take a look at what's happening with your relationships with others. And again, if you're starting to see that things are a little more strained, or you're more distant, or you're more irritable, if you're suddenly realizing you're really short-tempered with the kids, maybe time to do a little bit of self-reflection and check in.
Is it more typical that someone else will notice, a friend or a loved one will say, what's going on?
It depends on the individual. We have some people who are kind of very high-functioning individuals with depression who somebody at work would never know it. They hold it together. They're there. They're presented well. They're dressed. They get through the day. And then they pretty much hit the couch or the bed the instant they get home because that's done them in. So it's really important to check in with people. and see how they're doing, especially if you know people who perhaps do live alone or are a little bit more socially isolated.
Dr. Janine Hubbard with the Association of Psychology of Newfoundland and Labrador is our in-studio guest. We'll be back right after this.
Now back to Linda Swain on Target St. John's on VOCM.
And we're back on VOCM on Target St. John's. Dr. Janine Hubbard with the Association of Psychology of Newfoundland and Labrador is my in-studio guest. She's doing a little dance here now. One thing that I had to temper significantly over the last few days for my own well-being, and I'm in the news, I consume news, I'm a news addict. I wouldn't be in this business if I wasn't. It's my job, and it's my vocation, and it's my passion. But I find that there's some news that I do have to temper, and I have to dole
you need
out
to filter.
Yes,
Yep.
I have to filter it. Social media is really bad at that, I have to say. But there's two stories in particular that are causing me a little bit of stress and anxiety. One is anything to do with Donald Trump and this business that's going on in Iran right now. And the other one, of course, are the fires in Australia. And both very important stories, both with significant impacts on not just the people who are directly involved, but others. So how do we deal
How
with
do we
all
take
of that
care of
sort
ourselves?
thing?
And again, and it's interesting because somehow there are stories that either affect us in particular ways, or whether it's just the way that the news world has covered them. It's interesting because, of course, we have had forest fires burning in the Amazon last year and the year before, like that did not get the same attention, and how much of it has to do with some of the visual images that are going. I have this, you and I were talking before the show, I have the same issue. Some of those images coming from Australia, I have a really hard time handling. And yes, it occurred to me as I was coming in going, what's happened to all the Australian vineyards? We haven't heard those stories, but there are some, and why they resonate with us, it varies from person to person. I'm an animal person, so seeing some of that footage of the wildlife, of course, has hit me personally. Sometimes for people, it's seeing footage of kids. There are all kinds of different things that can be triggers for us. Oftentimes, it's because we have a sense of helplessness. Sometimes you hear news stories where you're like, yeah, okay, I'm hearing that, but I hear some positivity in it, or people are trying to make some changes, or here's something that I personally can do to help make a change in that story. I think both of these are ones that people are feeling kind of that sense of helplessness and hopelessness, which really helps to resonate it. There's also some anger tied up in there. There's a lot of really mixed emotions going on. And it's kind of being aware for yourself, what are my triggers? And am I losing perspective in terms of what are absolutely vitally important world news stories, but sometimes I have to focus. Sometimes we have to be a little selfish and focus in on what is happening today in my daily life, because sometimes that's where we need to be focusing in on. And then other days we may be able to take a look in terms of the bigger world picture, things that we might be able to do to help enact some change.
How do we... Because it's important to be aware.
Absolutely.
It's important to know what's happening around you. Yep. You don't want to live in a bubble.
No, but if you are someone who is finding this difficulty setting some boundaries and limits, saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to listen to the radio, but I'm going to maybe turn the dial down after I've heard the national news or the big news stories of the day once. I know when the programs that I'm interested in are going to be on, but I'm going to take that those couple of minutes to step away. Social media is particularly challenging from this because things like news, we used to, once upon a time, we got our news at 6:00 in the evening, and you could deal with that and process that because you were prepared for it. What's happening now with a lot of these stories is they're hitting us in all directions when we're not expecting it. 24-hour news. You're on Facebook or Twitter and you're looking at some happy feel-good, we rate dogs video and you're really enjoying yourself, and then all of a sudden right behind it is a news story that's hard-hitting and is really affecting you. So sometimes it's needing to set some boundaries, particularly around your social media use. Set those limits. Let yourself, catch up on the news of the day. But when there are big stories going on, set some boundaries. And then the flip side of all this is we were talking about that helplessness, hopelessness. Figure out some ways that maybe you can make a small difference. I saw the value of social media. Saw a wonderful post with some patterns down in Australia. They were looking for basically kangaroo pouches, people to make, some sewing projects to help with all of the orphan animals. Well, that's a way that you can say, okay, I can't stop the fire, but I can do something small that makes me feel a little less helpless, a little less hopeless. There's something that I can do to help contribute. So anytime you're starting to feel overwhelmed by a world event like that, if you can, try to find that small thing that you can do to make yourself feel I'm making a difference.
And it is that feeling of helplessness or hopelessness or what's going to happen next.
Absolutely.
That causes the uncertainty and anxiety.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And that lack of control, that lack of ability to have an impact is one of the things that can really affect our mental health. So being able to step back and say, and again, it may not be that you can help anything on the world stage, but maybe I can help make a difference in my community. Maybe there's something small that I can do. And sometimes it's a financial donation. Sometimes it's the, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to get involved in very small scale politics on a local level, or I'm going to run for a volunteer board for something that's happening here. Some way that you can feel that you are contributing to the bigger world picture.
Get a bird feeder, go outside, soak in nature. There's nothing more grounding, I find, and to help clear the mind than to be outside in nature.
One of the best things you can do, it'll also help with our chronic vitamin D deficiency that we all have, which will absolutely help with your mood. And it gives you a bit of grounding. It gives you perspective. Use that opportunity to do a little bit of self-reflection and just be observant. It's amazing the stuff that you can go out and see and smell and observe and just come back feeling like you've got a little bit more perspective. You guys are absolutely at risk for it because you're immersed in the news world, but we all do it to ourselves as well. And sometimes reminding yourself that, yes, these are important. These are big world impacting events. But what's happening today with my family, with my life, with my job, those are things I have control over. Let me focus in on what's affecting me here now today.
So, new year, new me, final thoughts?
Be kind to yourself. Be realistic. If this is the year that you're feeling that you're ready to make some small behavioral changes, go for it. Absolutely. But don't beat yourself up if this isn't the year, if this isn't the time, and know that there's lots of support out there for people who do want to try to make some behavioral changes.
I'm putting in my phone now, eat a carrot.
Can even be a baby carrot. Doesn't have to be a full one.
Actually, truth be told, I've been trying to sneak carrots and other vegetables into things. Yeah. I have a 9-year-old boy.
You have to sneak vegetables.
And he's very vigilant, I should say. Yep. He's always showing me the spoon saying, "What is this? What is this?" He's always deathly afraid it's going to be a mushroom.
Right.
He hates mushrooms.
Fair enough.
So he's eaten lots of mushrooms. He doesn't know it yet because it's always something else, if you know what I'm saying. I hope he's not listening to the radio.
It's okay. 9-year-old boys and cats. You can't sneak any food past them.
So I have been trying to sneak those fruits and vegetables into things, and sometimes with a certain amount of success and sometimes not so much. You have to work with sauces and stuff to cover up colors and things, I find.
You just always want to be careful. You need to know your kid. I occasionally have that backfire on parents because then the kids distrust anything that comes from them. So sometimes it's the saying, you know what, as a family, we are going to eat a carrot and make that That's okay. That's what dipping sauce is for. No, but it's figuring out, okay, and working on some of those changes and helping out everybody in the family to work towards whatever is going to work for you and your family in 2020.
And what have you got ahead of you now? The next half hour or so.
I have a lovely date with a tow truck driver. But beyond that, looking forward to embracing the new year. Listen, we've had a tremendous snowfall. It has cleared up now. Go out, get some of that fresh air. You're going to need to do some of that shoveling, but take some breaks as opposed to thinking of it as a laborious task. Break it up into chunks and enjoy and embrace, some of the, go, listen, it's good snowball weather. Go out and have a little bit of a snowball fight.
It's beautiful out there, too, I have to say. I just love new fallen snow. It looks like a group of
Make
seven
use of it.
painting.
Yep.
It's just absolutely
Or
fantastic.
take the camera out.
Get that fresh air down in your lungs and have a good sleep tonight.
There you go.
There you go. Dr. Janine Hubbard, thank you very much for coming in. Our special guest tomorrow is Gwen Mercer, and we're going to be talking about some of the warning signs when you're getting involved in a relationship that maybe you should not be getting involved in. We'll talk a little bit about that and other things coming up tomorrow on Target.